Tourette's podcast is not a medical advice show. It's a show about experiences. In the course of that, we may talk about medications or therapies or stories from the doctor's office, but don't mistake any of that for medical advice or direction. It's not. Get that only from people or places licensed or certified to give it. Not from a massively fun and action-packed podcast about our life experiences. Such as...
A big issue in my life was I always wanted to please everybody. Like, I always wanted to help everybody out instead of helping myself, because you just want to be accepted. You just want to try to help everybody out. But at the same time, you just have to embrace yourself for who you are. Just do what you love. And I think life will come that much simpler if you can learn how to do that.
This is Tourette's podcast, made possible with support of the Tourette Association of America and part of the Geeks Rising Network. Hey, it's Ben. Wanted to put something on the calendar for you. It's a little bit out, but there are some elements of this that are right around the corner, so check this out. If you saw the 2020 virtual gala from the Tourette Association, you heard that my passion is advocacy. It's a lot of what I do in a lot of different ways. Coming up on March 2nd, 2021, will be the first National Advocacy Day virtual kickoff. Advocacy Day is on the 3rd, but we're having a kickoff on the 2nd, 6 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 2nd, 2021. I'll be speaking at this event on the eve of National Advocacy Day proper, March 3rd, when Touretters and their advocates will be meeting virtually with their senators and House members on Capitol Hill. Virtually. That is to say, this is a focus in the United States, and we do have a global audience here, and I do like working with Tourette associations and organizations outside of the U.S. as well. But in the U.S., there's 1 million people with Tourette or another tic disorder, and it would be amazing to get 1 million people on Capitol Hill advocating. But the good thing about the virtual attendance is that you can do it from home, and you can sign up for this right now. There's a short form that you can fill out at Tourette.org, so you don't have to schedule this yourself. They'll do it for you. I'll put the sign-up link in the notes with this episode at tourettespodcast.com, or you can go to Tourette.org and click Attend an Event and scroll down to the March 3rd Virtual National Day of Advocacy. And you'll see as part of it, there's this kickoff the night before with me and others who will send you off the right way. If you sign up, there is a mandatory webinar on advocacy training. That's February 10th, where you can get all the info you need to be effective in a meeting with your members of Congress. The early bird registration rate is $50 per person. That's 50% off through December 31st. So the time is right to sign up now. Tourette.org, click Attend an Event, and scroll down. You'll see the button, March 3rd, Virtual National Advocacy Day 2021. Did you know, by the way, there's a Congressional Tourette Syndrome caucus? It's a lot of representatives on it. Anyway, when you're scrolling the events page at Tourette.org, you're also going to see a number of other activities you can check out. December 9th, it's How to Stop Stress and Anxiety from Spoiling Your Holidays. January 9th, it's the Virtual Teen Summit. I will be giving a presentation at that one too. January 20th, Just for Dads, a discussion on Tourette Syndrome and parenting. And there's a lot more, lots going on from the Tourette Association of America, Tourette.org. Thanks for your advocacy. The individual things you do help out a lot of people you'll probably never meet, and that's the best kind of outcome. Not that you won't meet them, but that you're helping people that you're never going to meet. You know what I mean? And so I really want to thank our guest this week. This is actually pretty awesome. Have we identified who might be the first professional boxing champion with Tourette Syndrome? A while back, I got a message from an Instagram account named Champs Management, whose arsenal included a pro boxer named Zack Rice, the TicNTimebomb. And last I heard, he had a fight coming up, a big fight in the Dominican Republic, December 12th. I know COVID's been playing with schedules, but that's not the point of the story. And yeah, sure, it's possible not everybody here is into boxing, but that's really just kind of like an operative backdrop in this episode, especially for the second half. I mean, I ask him questions about, what got him into pugilism and how he trains. But from there, it just opens up into philosophy and self-acceptance and the personal punishment of being a people pleaser and focusing on earning the admiration of other people to a degree where you're really subtracting too much from yourself. We talk about that. We talk about the motivation that gets him out of bed every day, and just a lot of good reminders for living the best life you can. This one just gets better and better and better as it goes, so hang out with us. This is me with the TicNTimebomb. Look out for him. Zack Rice.
Hi, my name is Zack Rice. I'm 25 years old. I'm originally from Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. It's a small town in central PA, about 2 hours away from Pittsburgh. It's the major city I'm closest to, but right now I'm currently living in Miami, Florida. I've been down here the past almost 2 years training to become a professional boxer. I actually have my pro debut December 12th down in the Dominican Republic. So my life's kind of very repetitive right now. Nothing too exciting, just constantly training and getting ready to train again.
I mean, that sounds pretty exciting, though, if you're working up to going to the Dominican Republic. I mean, is boxing what brought you down to Miami?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. All my family is up north, up in Pennsylvania and Connecticut area. I do have one uncle down here, but we actually just met for the first time last year when I first came down here. So it was completely different experience down here.
I mean, I guess I don't know enough about boxing in Miami. I know there's a lot of events there, but is that, I mean, why did you specifically target Miami? Were you recruited down there, or did you just pick it and were like, you know where the trainers were? Or
no, I was kind of recruited, kind of just reaching out. Like I said, I just reached out. I just met my one uncle for the first time, and he had a friend that knew my current trainer, who's in the Hall of Fame. His name's Jorge Rubio, and once we were introduced, he was interested in my story and just me in general, and said he would be interested in training me. So everything just kind of aligned perfect, and then I've just started training with him ever since.
So I guess how complete of a story did Jorge know? Was Tourette part of it, or were you open about that kind of thing, or what was that part?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very open to like pretty much anybody. I don't really. Yeah, I'm just pretty open to pretty much everybody. And whenever we were introduced, it's kind of hard to hide some of the tics. So he obviously knew something was up at the beginning, but he didn't treat me any differently than anybody else. So he made me feel comfortable.
Nice. Is boxing, because I've interviewed some fighters on here before, people who do mixed martial arts and people who do MMA journalism, and there's always a tie-in with their Tourette and their ticking, whether it's the act or the training or the discipline or the expression of fighting or training, or there's some tie-in maybe with focus or something. Do you have anything like that? I mean, is there a kind of a backstory to this, why you got into fighting, and does that relate to your life with Tourette?
Well, the main reason I really got into boxing, it's kind of funny because I grew up in a family that always played football. Like, football was very big. And growing up, while I was playing, some of the teammates and stuff, they were always like picking on me, harassing me. So I really didn't want to keep going through all that.
Yeah.
So my mom introduced me to one of her friends who had a martial arts gym. And from the first day, I just fell in love because, like you mentioned, the discipline and focus, you need to be focused, or you're going to get either knocked out or something's bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
And at first it's hard to kind of flip that switch because it's new. Like, your brain in general just fires off when it wants to. So to finally tell your brain to stop, it was difficult at first, but the more you keep doing it and get used to it, you just kind of get in your zone, and you just kind of just go from there.
Yeah, that's the way to describe it. Just the zone, just getting into the zone. I mean, it's exactly how I hear other people with Tourette. When they do something they love, or when they do something where there's a sense of focus and discipline, that's exactly the way everybody kind of describes it. Did it feel like a revelation, or did you have anything else in your life up to that point that kind of gave you a similar sense of satisfaction or control?
Up to that point, no. And even still to this day, I've tried multiple different medications to try to help ease with the tics, and honestly nothing really helps as much as just the act of boxing. Just as whenever I get in my zone, just like anybody else that has it that you've talked to, whether it be anything, not even boxing, just whether it be singing, dancing, drawing, so anything, they're just completely focused. We don't know how to really explain it. It just kind of happens, and once it happens to you, you'll really know.
So I've been watching your videos on Instagram, and you're really dialed in. I mean, if I didn't know through your manager that you had Tourette, I don't think I would have known. Is this something that is kind of widely known about you, or does that story kind of follow you closely? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of pretty obvious that I have Tourette's once you're around me for just a certain amount of time, but it is different whenever I am boxing and in my zone, because even though it might be only 3 minutes at a time in the rounds, that's when I'm focused and you don't know it as much.
Right.
But even in the rest breaks, the minute in between and the moments leading up and after to it, you can see me kind of fall out of my zone.
Yeah.
And then until that bell rings, and I get back in my zone. And it's truly crazy, because there's some days I can't even take 2 deep breaths in a row without having a tic, or it's hard to put socks on or even get dressed. So yeah, my stuff is kind of out in the open, but it also just whenever you find your zone, nothing's going to stop it.
Well, I mean, you definitely, you talked about the moments leading up, and then you get focused. I mean, so TicNTimebomb is definitely the perfect name for you. I love it. Is that something you incorporate, or is that just kind of like a handle on social media?
No, it is definitely something I try to incorporate, just because I know my story is different than the rest. There's not many other professional boxers with Tourette's. So I kind of wanted to keep it incorporated, but try to keep it just something catchy, just so people can just gravitate to. It's nothing too hard to remember, and it just goes hand in hand. So, and plus growing up, I was always told I explode like a time bomb. And then just one day I was like, oh, ticking time, I have tics. So it just kind of fell together.
Well, that also puts you in the position of being, pretty inspirational to a lot of younger kids who want to go in that direction, or find some sense of discipline for themselves, and they haven't quite found the right thing. I played different kinds of sports when I was growing up, and just a couple of them took with me. And then when I got into music, that's when everything was like, okay, this is the answer. And then photography later on, it's like, this is really the answer. This is where I feel at my best. And it's nice to share these stories just to give people ideas of what might work for them. Have you had occasion to interact with younger kids with TS, or with other sort of disorders that are kind of in the same neighborhood? Or
I haven't met too many other individuals with Tourette's. I have met some, but they were kind of either older or just in the same general age group. So I really haven't mentored anybody really. But there's always kids that just, they don't know the situation or condition you're in, so obviously they always have questions or concerns and all that, so you just try to answer your best to inform them, and just try to keep them keep them updated with everything new going on.
Gotcha. You had mentioned, some days are pretty difficult where, it's difficult even putting on socks. I mean, is that kind of the norm for you that that just kind of doing some routine things end up being pretty difficult because of your tics? And has it always been that way, or did it get worse over time, or?
Yeah, I mean, it literally depends on the day. It's a day by day, second by second condition, I'd say. The best way I can describe it is it's pretty much living with full body hiccups. Everybody knows how frustrating like hiccups in general are. And then just imagine just every part of your body just randomly having a hiccup whenever it chooses to. It can be very frustrating, but gotta keep going.
But I've talked to a lot of other people who have really, I guess you could say, violent tics, just very violent kind of hiccups of the body. And it definitely prevents them from doing, simple things, whether it's like, spreading peanut butter on bread or drinking, from a can. I mean, just little things that people take for granted that can be made really difficult by something with Tourette. When did this start for you? Were you really young when you first started ticking? And I mean, do you have memories of that?
Yeah, the first real main experience I can think of, I was in, I believe, the third grade, and I just kept rolling my eyes. Like, I just kept having this feeling in my eyes that just wouldn't go away. And at that age, you don't think anything of it. And then that obviously changes to something else. And then I start making some noises, clearing my throat, interrupting like my family, friends, and then it started becoming an issue to where I couldn't control it. So, but then once everybody kind of understood and learned from it, everybody was all understanding. But yeah, it's a day by day condition. Some days I can feel great and I feel normal, and then there's other days I'm like literally paralyzed and don't want to leave my bed because it's a struggle. And plus everybody that has this condition has their own individual tics. Like nobody has really the same stuff. So it all affects everybody differently. So you just have to find your way to deal with it and just go on it with that way. It's not a one size fit all.
Yeah. Well, how long did it take for you to kind of, you and your family to kind of adjust? And, and when I say adjust, I'm kind of putting that in quotes because I know it's always a challenge, but, in terms of just understanding it and coming to grips with it. And this is what it's going to be. And I'm going to have to model my life kind of around it.
I mean, it's always still kind of a learning experience because, like I said, they're always changing. So sometimes, some days, certain things are easier than the next. So I'll have to do some things a certain way on certain days, or then I'll have to switch it up if another tic is acting up. So it really... So, I mean, we kind of all just work together. I mean, my whole family and friends, they understand the situation I'm in. I can't really control too much. So they understand I'm doing the best I can, and they're accepting, and that's truly the biggest part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, especially after hearing from people, from families who haven't accepted them, and it's if you don't really have that at the core, then the rest of it is going to be a lot more difficult than it could be. And so it counts for so much to have that support at home. So your friends, they get it, but growing up, was that difficult? Because, like kids can be, the filter is not quite there. And
kids can be rude. I mean, yeah, it was difficult growing up just because nobody in my area like has ever had or heard of Tourette's. I was kind of the first case known. So yeah, there were kind of those awkward looks, the whispers, the laughing, pointing, teasing, and all that. But growing up with them, like since we're all in the same school classes, they kind of like grew used to it, and it just wasn't. It just was nothing new. It was just normal. But some of the hardest parts were just dealing with grown adults who you would expect to have some knowledge of what's going on, or just some respect to how to talk to somebody and not just be ignorant and out front. So
Yeah.
I'd say some adults are harder to deal with than even some younger kids who might not understand fully.
Yeah. After kind of looking back and thinking about, I guess, my life after doing the podcast for a few seasons, I've definitely, I think, decided that was one of the most damaging points for me. It wasn't the kids my age. It was, even though I gravitated toward adults more, because I felt like I related to adults more, certain adults would, it's like they didn't know how they were talking to me. They didn't feel it the same way I felt it. And there are so many times where it's like they were talking to me like I just couldn't follow what they were saying, or I didn't get what was going on. So it was just this really kind of harsh kind of condescension, but also an ignorance about, what I was going to do, or, am I going to be a bad influence, or am I going to, it's like, so much of that was unnecessary. And I guess I get where they were coming from as parents, and they want to make sure their kids are hanging out with the right person. But just that misunderstanding led to so much more frustration and made it so much more difficult for me to relate to people. And I did a lot of bottling up. I went inward and just didn't want to talk to people, stayed inside and played video games when I was a kid. And I had friends, but that experience was really, I think, damaging, because it really robbed me of a lot of confidence that I could have had adults who you would expect, just as you said, to show some respect, and have a sense of patience that, okay, maybe I don't understand what's going on here, instead of rushing to some kind of judgment where you're going to be kind of harsh and condescending. And it's that part, that's one of the most difficult parts for me, I think.
Yeah, it really is, because you're trying to find a place to fit in and try to find people who accept you for who you are, and just getting those negative feedback sometimes, it just brings you back to square one and makes you think twice about trying to open up and proceed forward. And sometimes it takes a while to get back up on your feet and get things started again, but that's just the biggest thing. You just have to keep going, because everybody has their own opinions. Not everybody knows exactly what's going on. So you just have to, just like you expect people to be understanding of you, you kind of have to be understanding of them, and just kind of work together and just honestly just kind of live your life. The more you don't embrace your struggles, the more it's just more gonna rip you apart. That's what I found. As soon as I actually embraced the fact that I have Tourette's, and it's not like you can just go to a doctor and get a prescription to cure it. It's something that's with you for your pretty much life. So it kind of took a while to actually embrace that I wasn't kind of like the others. But once I did embrace it, it made it so much easier, because at the end of the day, it's your life. You have to live it to how you want. So whatever makes you happy, you just have to follow that.
Man, I so agree. It's self-acceptance is like the big battle, I feel like, because you can be your own worst enemy. And it's understandable how you can get to that point. But like with me, I was not comfortable with myself. I didn't like myself. I was embarrassed, and I didn't want anybody to judge me without me having a say in that narrative. And based on someone just taking cues from me and then misunderstanding me. And so self-acceptance was like a huge revelation for me. And so much has changed since I did that. And this is in the past few years, but just acceptance of what Tourette is in your life, and then self-acceptance, which I feel like are two different things, where you can have the confidence to kind of be comfortable with yourself and talk about it, and then do exactly what you were talking about doing. Maybe what you're good at, or explore, kind of like where your talents lead you. And you can find something that you can just dial into, and you can be great at it. And in finding boxing, I mean, it's really kind of appropriate just because of the whole, the storyline of boxing that about, falling down or, getting knocked down and getting back up, and not accepting defeat as something that's going to follow you through your life. Like you're gonna keep fighting. You're gonna keep, and it's really appropriate that you're there. I mean, in a way that has to feel kind of good, in a way that you have something that gives you this mantra of moving and getting back up, and you're not going to be defeated as a person. That's different from boxing, but it has to feel like some kind of tie-in, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, they definitely go hand in hand, because like you said, in boxing, like you get knocked down, you get right back up, and I feel that's just like in life in general. Like, even if you're not dealing with Tourette's, there's always obstacles that come up that knock you down, but you just have to get up, and life keeps moving on, so it doesn't wait for anybody. So you just have to just keep fighting, just keep pushing. Right when you're about to give up, that's whenever you have to push harder, and once you're done, you'll actually realize how much effort you gave, and you're willing to work for it.
The Tourette Association of America is the premier nonprofit working to raise awareness, advance research, and provide ongoing support to those with Tourette Syndrome or tic disorder. With a network of over 130 chapters, support groups, and centers of excellence, the TAA engages with communities across the nation in an effort to provide tools, webinars, workshops, and support for all seeking assistance. As a primary sponsor of Tourette's podcast, the TAA supports the authentic conversations showcasing the diverse representation of the TS community. To learn more, visit Tourette.org, TOURETTE.org.
So what goes into your training, working up to the card in the Dominican Republic?
Well, right now, I have training in the morning for about, I'd say about 2 hours. And then I come back, shower, grab some lunch, do anything else I need to get done for the day, whether that be laundry, go to the store, do stuff with my car. And then in the afternoon, I do my running. I go about 3 to 5 miles every day. And then I'll end the day at nighttime with about a half-hour stretch, and then I'll do about 1,000 to 2,000 abs. So, so it's a pretty busy day, and like I said, it's very repetitive right now. So there's not too much going out and enjoying all the free time, because training's exhausting. It is difficult. And whenever you're not training, you're resting to get ready to go train again. So, so I mean, it is difficult, but at the same time, it's nothing. I wouldn't trade anything for the world for this. I'm truly living my dream right now.
That's awesome. So the Dominican Republic, how'd you get set up with that? I guess, do you know much about your opponent? Is that a big part of it? Kind of studying how they move, or?
Right now, I don't really know who my opponent is. I just have a date set. Everything got set up through my coach and manager. They have all the connections and all that stuff. So whenever they thought I was ready to fight, they just put out the word and tried to get me a match. I was actually supposed to have one last April, March-ish, but since all this coronavirus started, everything just kind of got messed up and pushed back. So it's kind of been a long time coming. So I'm just finally glad It's coming around the corner.
Like, how many rounds do you have to go? Like, is there like a limit to it, or?
Yeah, for this one, it'll be a 4-round fight. There'll be 4 3-minute rounds.
Gotcha.
Then as I progress, like for more and more fights, they'll increase in rounds, all the way up to hopefully a 12-round title fight.
Oh, gotcha. So that's how it works. Like you have to, like, I guess.
Yeah, so you work your way up. It pretty much starts at 4 rounds, because all the amateur fights are 3 rounds. So then the pros, they'll go up to start at 4 rounds, then go 6, 8, 10 to 12.
Have you had a number of amateur fights so far?
Yeah, I've had about 35 or 36 amateur.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I boxed in college too. That's where a decent bit of my fights came. I went to Lock Haven University. It's in Pennsylvania. It's about like 20 minutes away from Penn State University.
Okay.
So yeah, I was on the boxing team there, so we always had fights.
How long ago was your last one?
I'd say probably about a year ago.
Okay.
A little more, just because all this coronavirus kind of messed everything all up.
But is it pretty standard to space out your fights? I mean, is there like a required kind of recuperating time, or?
It pretty much depends on your fight, because every fight you're checked by a doctor afterwards.
Yeah.
And if they think it's necessary, they can suspend you for whether it be a couple weeks to a couple months. They won't let you get a sanctioned fight until that time is up.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty much just generally depending on how you feel from the fight.
So leading up to a fight, I mean, with me and with a lot of people with Tourette, stress and kind of, anxiety or just a sense of urgency can sometimes, cause your tics to kind of perk up.
Well,
does that happen with you? Do you tick more kind of on the road to a fight?
Yeah. I mean, I'm no different than anybody else. Everybody gets anxious and nervous sometimes, especially big moments like this. But the biggest thing that helped me out was honestly a book I read. It was called The Power of Now, and it pretty much just explains how to live in the now, how you shouldn't really worry about the past or the future, or like just simple stuff, how just to actually embrace the moment of life you're in. And
I need to read this.
Yeah, it helped me out tremendously, honestly, because before I was never a big reader. Like growing up in school, I hated reading. I never read any assignments. But this book, it just kind of stood out to me for some reason. And it's the first book I read front to back. And that's helped me find the mindset just to not stress as much, because once you do let your tics take over you, it's so hard to get that control back. So as long as you can just try your best to live in your moment and actually embrace what's around you, that definitely helps out. It definitely helped me. So
wow. Well, I don't want to steal from the book too much, but do you have any tips to help people do that? Because I mean, that's something that could benefit me right now. I mean, I'm always either, stacking things up in my head of things I have to do, and I really compress them, even though it's like the next 6 months of things I need to get done. I really compress them to feel like I need to do them right now. And it makes me really frazzled and really anxious. And then just things from the past, same thing. I just stack up things that I'm like, oh God, I just like weird memories or, which affects me in the present. I mean, do you have any quick kind of suggestions for people to kind of live in the now?
Yeah, honestly, it's a lot easier said than done, just like a lot of things. But
Hmm.
the one tip that I could probably give is just simply just take a deep breath. Whenever you feel you're starting to get anxious and work yourself up into where you're almost losing control, just take a couple deep breaths and just clear your mind. And you just have to just keep repeating to yourself, like, just stay in the now. Nothing else really matters. You can always find something to worry about, and something's always going to bother you. But if it's truly not causing you pain, grief, or anything like that, there's really no point to stress about it, because in the end, things always work out better than you make them in your mind, because you're always thinking of the worst possible outcome of a situation, when in reality that never even really comes close to happening that way. So if you can just control your breathing, that's the big thing that helps me whenever I feel like I'm starting to get out of my zone. I just take a deep breath, clear my mind, and just try to embrace the moment. It's easier said than done, but it's pretty simple once it comes down to it. You can't just overthink it.
It is true though. I mean, breathing is really, and it's kind of weird because I've learned sort of breathing exercises, and they've helped me every time I've done them, but I always forget. It's like sometimes, like, you know, when I go through these anxiety moments, my brain just kind of runs away and I don't think of all these self-preservation things that I could be doing. But breathing always helps. I feel like I need to get it tattooed, like in a really visible place, like my forearm or something. Just breathe. Don't forget to breathe.
Right. It's simple things like that, because I even noticed with boxing, everybody tries to complicate every move, just try to be that much better. But at the end of the day, it's the simple things that work. It's the devil's in the details. It's the small things that actually matter.
Is boxing something you want to do pretty long term? Is this? I mean, you're at the professional level right now, aren't you?
Yeah. I've been training boxing for the past 13 years. So it's pretty much half my life I've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It is something I want to continue to do with my career. My overall dream is to become the first world boxing champion with Tourette's. I want to try to just inspire anybody, whether or not be in sports, whether it be anything. That if you truly want something, just do everything in your power to make it happen. Don't let anybody else's opinions or statements deter you from where you want to go.
I love it. I found this to be so true in the Tourette world, that it's like when you have a skill, there's a level of extra focus, if that's one way to say it, that people with, and I don't want to sound like I'm like praising Tourette over anything else in the world, but there is something to the level of dedication I feel like you can give to something that you love or something that clicks with you, whether it's boxing, whether it's art, whether it's, you know, playing drums or whatever it is. There's kind of this almost like obsessive level with being really good at what you're able to do. And everybody that I've run across who has these talents, they really dig in, and they're all completely viable. I don't even really know what I'm trying to say. It's like there is this Tourette edge that I feel like benefits people when it comes to their talents and what they should be pursuing in life or could be pursuing in life. Things that I'm pinching myself all the time because I get to do what I love for a living, and it's because I really pursued it. Visual arts, photography, things like that. I mean, I really wanted to do this stuff for a living, and I found a way to make it work. And it's not always easy to be able to do what you love for a living. I mean, sometimes you have to go through hard stuff, but eventually I feel like you can kind of weave it in and make it something that is yours. And it's really cool to hear you talk about it that way, because it completely matches up with how I think about it and what I've seen in other people. And I have gotten a couple other questions from parents, for example, about martial arts and boxing, and I think kind of from a discipline angle. And because we have a lot of parents listening, we've had a couple MMA people on here, and I think from the outside, some people think maybe it's just kind of like it's violent or it's a barbaric thing, or is there a way you can kind of speak to that in sort of the positive light that it is in your life and how it works for you as someone with Tourette?
Yeah. Like I touched on earlier, I think boxing is the perfect metaphor for life, because there's always stuff that's going to knock you down, and you just have to find a way to stand back up and beat it. Everybody thinks whenever they watch boxing or martial arts, it is violent because just the whole physicality part. You're getting punched and kicked in the face and all that. So yeah, there is some violence, but I view it more as an art, because just there's a certain way you have to throw your punches and how to defend them and how to use your movements, how to use your opponent's movements against them. And you just have to try to find a way to be one step ahead. And I think that's a good metaphor for life too, because something's always going to come up, and you just have to try to be that one step ahead to try to avoid the mistake from taking you down.
Yeah, especially with Tourette. I mean, the way a lot of people live is being really hyper conscious of what the world thinks of you, and trying to keep people from making unfair judgments about you. And it really is a way that people construct their lives. And I said on a recent episode where I kind of repeated the thought, and it applies to boxing too, that I was talking about jujitsu, but it's kind of like chess, where you have to think ahead and you have to, okay, what's this guy about to do? And what can I do to either block it, or if he is successful in getting this hold on me, what can I do about that? And it's a really deep thinking kind of thing, and a strategy kind of thing. And it's really, I think it's really admirable in that regard.
Yeah, it's definitely a thinking man's game, because like everyone says, the tough man in boxing, they're gonna get hurt. You can't just go and think you're invincible and you're just gonna go take every shot and you're just gonna go knock the other guy out, because in reality that's really not how it works. So you have to just try to be that one step ahead. Try to beat them to the punch.
So, this whole time we've been talking, there's been loads of really good advice and, kind of positive affirmations on life. But for anybody listening, maybe even younger people, or adults too, who haven't quite gotten to the level of self-acceptance and feeling like they are where they need to be in life in terms of just having that confidence. Do you have any thoughts on that? Any advice for people who might be at that sort of stage of hoping they can maybe kind of get through, but aren't quite at that level?
Yeah, because I've been there myself. But at the end of the day, you have to realize everybody on this planet is special in their own individual way. Everybody's different. No two people are the same. So as long as you can just actually embrace that and just realize, yeah, you might not be like the next person down the road or the next person in line standing next to you, but your individual story has never been written before. So you're in charge of writing your own story in your life. So as long as you do what truly makes you happy, you shouldn't try to go please everybody else, because that's what I found a big issue in my life was I always wanted to please everybody. I always wanted to help everybody out instead of
absolutely
helping myself. because you just want to be accepted. You just want to just try to help everybody out instead of helping yourself. But at the same time, you just have to embrace yourself for who you are and just do what you love. And I think life will come that much simpler if you can learn how to do that and just take it simple. Because life, it's simple. It can come in a second. It can go any second too, whether you want it or not. So you just have to truly just embrace and just love your life.
That is such huge advice, and I feel like we don't talk about it enough on the podcast either, because it's such an easy thing to fall into, to be kind of a people pleaser and to not want to let people down. You want acceptance. You want to be known as the person who can get it done, because the alternatives really suck. It's not fun to be seen as someone who has like some kind of problem, and you're not reliable either. And that's something I've always had as a self-consciousness of I want to be seen as reliable. I want to be seen as someone who is competent enough to get things done. And that was my own insecurity. And I think I have wasted so much time saying yes to everything that comes my way, every request, because I didn't want to let anybody down. And I feared the consequences of not following through or not doing what someone hoped I could do for them. And I just wanted to be that person who was there and who was seen as the person who could get it done. And it was a horrible insecurity based on my Tourette syndrome and how I evaluated myself. And it's just, I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's really, really important that we should all just kind of like audit ourselves and ask ourselves, are we spending enough time focusing on what we're good at and what we're able to do to make ourselves happy? And once we get to that place, where we've developed our talents and we are happy, we feel good about ourselves, it seems like we're in a much better position to help other people and really get things done in a proper way, versus just saying yes to everything, because I have had such a bad history of doing that.
Exactly. Same here. I feel like me personally, I try to always say yes, because I don't want to be viewed as the person who pretty much just has Tourette's. Like he can't do this because he has that. Like exactly. I want to prove to anybody that whatever somebody else can do, I can do just as well, if not better than them. Mm-hmm. And it comes to a point where that starts hurting you, because that starts taking away time. You're taking away time from yourself. You're investing into other activities that don't really need your true attention.
Exactly.
That aren't benefiting you in any way.
Exactly. Like you do you. Don't do it just because someone else expects you to. You do you. You know what's right. If you really think about it, you know what's right. You know what you can do well. And, if you do what you do well, people are going to notice. It's you don't have to perform. People are going to be looking at you. And it's that's one of the biggest things I've had to learn. And I learned it way late in life, late 30s. I was just, the insecurity can be really tough. It can be really, really tough.
It really can. It really can.
Is there anything I haven't asked about that you think's important, or any final thoughts that you have? I mean, we've covered a lot of good stuff, but I definitely want to give you the floor.
I just want to mention, like, one of my biggest motivations that actually, like, push me, like, that gets me out of bed each and every day. Mm-hmm. It's my gram. My gram was my best friend. She was pretty much my second mom while my parents were working. When I was a kid, she took care of all of us, and she was the toughest person I've ever met. She beat cancer. She had a stroke. She had triple bypass open heart surgery. She was a diabetic. She had kidney transplants. She had.
Wow.
That's just like, those are just things I can come up with off the top of my head. But, and no matter what she had going on in her life, she always fought it with a smile. And every time her kids and the grandkids were around, she always acted like nothing was wrong. And whenever she passed, that was pretty much one of the hardest times in my life.
Yeah.
And I remember making a promise to her that she never gave up and always fought to the end. So I'm going to give everything I possibly can until I become a world champion. So that's whenever I have those days, I'm just exhausted. I don't feel like getting up, going to practice, going to do my run at night, because I have nobody to go with, nobody to push me and actually force me to do it. I just think of her, and that's pretty much all the motivation I need to get up and get going. Because if you think about it, yeah, there's always things that are going to suck that you don't want to do. But just think about all the people out there. Like, say I don't want to go for a run. Think about all the people out there that can't run, whether they're in a wheelchair, they have a disability, like a muscle disability, or an amputee, like a war veteran. They would do anything to be able to go walk or run. So if you have the ability to do something, I feel like that's just kind of ignorance to just not do it, just take it for granted. And that's the big thing with Tourette's. You kind of just, you see the simple things, you don't take them for granted because you see how difficult they can be. So if you can actually do something, just do it, because there's so many people out there that wish they could do just the simple things that you can do.
Well, let's dedicate this episode to her. What's her name?
Her name is Alice, but everybody always called her Bunny.
Cool. Yeah, we'll dedicate this episode to Bunny.
Thank you.
Oh man. Well, Zach, this has been great. Like I'm really glad we linked up and we were able to do this, have this conversation, because it's brought me a couple reminders. One, breathe. And then, just the reminder of you've been through a lot, you still deal with Tourette, but you found a way to channel it, and you found a way to, the analogy is right in front of you, you get back up and you keep fighting, and you have multiple reasons why. It's not just Tourette, it's not just for the sake of victory. It's, there's a whole lot there. And I really appreciate you telling your story.
I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to get my story out there.
How can we keep up to follow the fight, or is there a way to follow you?
Yeah, on Instagram you can follow my page. It's at TicNTimebomb. It's TICN Timebomb, no space. Then I also have a Twitter, TicNTimebomb 1, spelled the same way, but just with number 1 at the end. And then also I have a YouTube channel that I have highlight videos, updates, fight news, sparring, just any kind of thing going on with my journey. And you can find me on YouTube, Zack the TicNTimebomb Rice.
Thanks for listening. The TicNTimebomb, Zack Rice. Best of luck with everything. We'll keep in touch, I'm sure. Hopefully reporting on some outcomes from the ring. Keep us informed. Otherwise, I really took a lot from that. Just good enrichment, really. I'm not kidding about that breathing tattoo. Like, I really am thinking about getting a tattoo just reminding me to chill out and breathe. I need to get it somewhere that I'll see it every day. I'm a shoegazer. I'm always looking down at my feet, and I don't wear shoes in the house, so maybe my foot's a good place to get it. Do any of you guys have mental health tattoos or reminders on your body that keep you in check? I would love to know this, how you're expressing that. Shout out to my friend Benita. She is a good source of information on that, just about keeping it up. But yeah, give me some ideas. Tourette'sPodcast@gmail.com. at Tourette's Pod on Twitter. If you want, you can drop them at the Tourette's Podcast discussion group on Facebook, kept up by the amazing Sophia in the UK, one of my favorite people. As always, tell her thank you for what she does. Tourette's Podcast is made possible by the Tourette Association of America, online at tourette.org. If you would like to give individual support to the show, you can do it at patreon.com/Tourette's Podcast. Every little bit helps. Remember, this podcast is there for strangers as well. So whatever you do to support the podcast, even if it's just sharing it with other people, you keep the domino effect going of helping people down the line. Thanks, as always, to Geeks Rising, geeksrising.com. That's where you can find this and other podcasts to get you through your day, keep you informed, laugh, hear about the filmography of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Check out On the Subject. That's a podcast about movies and kind of how they tie in with pop culture and what the backdrop is. And Logan, Zach, and Malcolm are amazing hosts. geeksrising.com. All right, everybody. Thanks for giving me a week off last week. Just a lot going on. Had to catch up with things, and there was Thanksgiving stuff in the U.S. So anyway, I'm back on the board, and I will catch you next week. This is Ben.